Guys, John Polemy here, Actionable Intelligence. Today is Saturday, March 28th, and this is the weekly market update. The disclaimer, anything that you hear or see on this podcast or video is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a registered financial advisor. I cannot give you personal financial advice. Please do your own due diligence. It's your money. It's your responsibility. Okay, so this is I don't know, the fifth week now, I guess, of this excursion into the Middle East, this war with Iran, whatever you want to call it. And these are the prices for oil on Friday afternoon. And I put here at the top, Truth Social posts are losing their effectiveness. So I'll get into this a little bit more in a subsequent slide, but buffers and the SPRs, and I mean, the stuff is working like it's designed to work as a shock absorber. The problem is it's not a never-ending shock absorber. All of these releases, all of these um, things that are happening in the background, lifting sanctions on Russian oil, lifting sanctions on Iranian oil, these are all stopgap measures. You still have um, the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed to tanker traffic and to basically all traffic. And that's not only oil, as we've talked about, that's LNG, that's fertilizer, that's all these other things. Plus, there's nothing coming in. Remember, a lot of these places are dependent on imported food and other things. They don't grow anything, they don't make anything in these places. They produce oil and refined products and different other products related to their petrochemical industries, export them, and then buy most of the imports they need to survive. So that's not happening either. And so we've got a lot of jawboning, a lot of, Truth Social posts flying at us, and they're losing their effectiveness. I noticed like the last couple that Trump has made, they've caused the price of oil to drop and then it immediately comes right back because the market prices in that this is just more talk and no action, no plan. So this is from Rystad, energy consultancy. Um, they're not always right. No one is, but this is a um, pretty good effort to show what's going on. So this is the Strait of Hormuz lost flow on the left. Um, and then you start seeing the add backs, right? This is the cross Saudi pipeline that comes out in Yanbu. I think it's around 4 million barrels a day. If you look at this with the UAE's port that is outside of the Persian Gulf, those together is estimated at 4.1 million barrels of oil a day. Now, I did see some tweets where the Saudis were saying that they're at full capacity, 7 million barrels a day are going through that pipeline. Then I've seen other people that know what they're talking about saying, well, that's not likely because it's just the ability to store and load that oil at that Yanbu port is not that level. So I'm going with sticking with Rystad for right now. Then you have 2.2 million barrels per day of refinery cuts, primary in Asia Pacific due to lack of crude, partly offset by 200,000 barrels per day higher runs in the Atlantic Basin. So this isn't like super positive because this is demand destruction, right? Or it's supply destruction. You're not going to have refined products. Yes, you have less oil needed, but that's less refined products. This is the SPR release. We've talked about that. They could say, well, we're going to release coordinated 100 and whatever, 200, 400 million barrels, whatever they said, but it has to come out. And what's the barrels per day flow rate? And Rystad's saying altogether that's like 2.3 million barrels per day. It's interesting because I did see a article showing that the releases only go to countries that are in this consortium. Like, for example, India doesn't really isn't really going to get more oil because of this. Okay, so countries that aren't in the, you know, having this ability to release from SPRs aren't going to get like, not like Japan's going to send other countries oil. No, the releases are going to be used in Japan. The US, I mean, I guess they'll export some, but we always import. So people are confused about the oil that we have in Permian's exported. We don't refine that oil for the most part because our refineries are more tuned up for heavy oils that come from like Mexico and Venezuela and places like that, Saudi Arabia, these places. Then you have floating storage, which is close to another um, million barrels a day. So then you have, taking all this into account, you have a 5.1 million barrel imbalance. And then they're including this pre-war surplus in there. I mean, they're being very generous, I think, in some of their assumptions, but they still end up at a 2.5 million barrel per day deficit. In a market like oil, the marginal barrel determines the price. So um, right now, things are why people don't understand, like, why isn't oil already at $200 a barrel? Because these things are in effect, and the market's pricing in the fact that they don't think, you know, we're going to need to price a barrel at that level because the oil is still sufficient, and you get demand destruction and other thing. But as the days go by, and as we'll show some other charts, these buffers are going to start running out. Oil on water, some of these other things. The supposed glut that we had is gone away. Okay. And so the longer this goes on, which I think it's going to go on a lot longer than people think, I've kind of my view kind of up in the air because there was a lot of information coming at us at the start. Now it looks like Iran, an analyst described this in game theory, and I hope I get this correct. He called it the Nash equilibrium. And I briefly looked it up. I mean, basically, the way I understand it is in a Nash equilibrium, you don't change what you're doing like Iran, no matter what everybody else does. So if Donald Trump tacos, you keep the straits closed. If Donald Trump tries a ground invasion and tries to take the islands, you keep the strait closed. If they want to negotiate, you don't negotiate. You keep the strait closed. And so it doesn't matter what Trump administration does now, because now Iran is on. See, this is the problem again that we're at, which I've described before. When you look at things from your perspective or a U.S. perspective, you're making a big mistake. You have to look at it from the Iranian perspective. And I spent a lot of time. I mean, I'm no expert. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I have better understanding of the Shia philosophy, the history of Shia Islam, and some of the things they've went through, and that martyrdom is very inculcated into their uh, culture, and they have been through similar things before in their history. Okay, and the fact that because religion isn't important to most people in the U.S. and Europe and these places, it is important to many of these people. Okay, and when you refuse to look at things like that, and then you don't consider that you've created a situation where you've put these people into a situation where this may be in their mind, at least, or their perception or their view, that this is existential for them, then they're going to go all the way. That's why when they put these demands out that I went over and have been put out already, they're not going to get off them. And what are you going to do? You're not going to invade Iran and take it over. It's not possible. Okay. It's not going to happen like that. Okay. You can keep dropping bombs on them. Okay. That's not going to change it because this is existential. And what galls me and burns me about this whole thing is it's similar to what the situation in Russia and Ukraine. Russia has had their, I don't want to say demands, but their what they want considered for a ceasefire, for an end to hostilities, and they're not even acknowledged by the West. And this is the same thing. Okay. Donald Trump is saying crazy things like him and Donald Trump and the Ayatollah will determine who goes through the Strait. All this crazy stuff. Okay. These people, you know, are playing for keeps. And they have, as many analysts have said, escalation dominance. That every day that goes by gets us closer to $200 a barrel and $8 gasoline in the US. That will be the end of the Trump administration. People will be begging for an end of this. And it's going to happen, okay? The repercussions and the negative consequences are already coming to fruition in many countries around the world. We've talked about it. We'll talk about it more. Okay, so it's all the Iranians simply are saying this is not like not painful for them. It's very painful. They don't show you the demonstrations, the popular demonstrations of the people, the interviews with people. You can say, well, this is all, propaganda that they're putting out. Well, this is comforting to say that, inside every Iranian is an American trying to get out, just like, that stupid colonel in Full Metal Jacket in Vietnam. Inside every gook is an American trying to get out. These imperial excursions around the world are not working. They don't work. They result in a lot of people getting killed and us losing a lot of money. But who benefits? I'll let you answer that. Cui bono? Who benefits? So here's the shortages. This is ran this told Chat GPT, hey, go scan the news for yesterday and tell me, where what countries are having issues. This is just a small sampling. I have two, Thailand. Thailand's facing fuel shortages and describes long queues and widespread pump shortages. This is already happening. Nice. Philippines. Manila also declared a national energy emergency and suspended spot power sales over fuel supply risks. Um, Indonesia, among Asian countries facing fuel shortages as it sought alternative crude supply. Sri Lanka, long queues, formal rationing, and emergency spot purchases to cover a supply shortfall. Cambodia, supply shortfall severe enough that about one-third of Cambodia's petrol stations had closed the prior week. Queues in Phnom Penh. Australia, which we've talked about before, several hundred stations running out of gasoline or diesel after shipment cancellations. It goes down the line. India, queues and fears of shortages. I saw people getting in fights in a video over fuel. Um, South Korea, queues at cheaper stations, but said disruptions remain limited. Reuters reported isolated, this is South Africa, diesel stockouts at filling stations and among farmers, though these were described as localized rather than nationwide. So it had a lot more. I could go on, but this is what's happening around the world. And we're only, what, still less than 30 days into this? What happens if we go 60, 90, 120 days? Because the demands that the Iranians have put forward to stop this, they're going for broke. They're all in. All in, pushed all the chips in, said call. Okay. We're not going to just have a ceasefire for a month so that you can rearm, refit, and then we can recommence this. Okay. We're not going to do this every 6 months. That's how the Russians feel about it. If you go talk to the average Russian soldier, why are you doing this? Okay. Listen to what Patrick Lang talk to these people, talk to the leadership so that we don't have to do this again. We want an overall security that takes in Russia's considerations in an overall security agreement for Europe. U.S. is in Western Europe won't even talk about it. The same thing's going to happen here. But as I've said many times, the stagflation, the fuel shortages, the food shortages that are going to start happening, and get worse, are going to force their hand. If the United States, this could conceivably be the a Suez moment for the United States. And I'm not going to get into what the Suez thing was for the UK, and I think it was 1953, the Suez Crisis. You can go look at that, but that was like the final nail in the British Empire. Okay, and something similar could be happening here. Uh, Iran wants all the bases out of the Middle East. Iran wants control of the Strait of Hormuz. They want to create a toll system. They want reparations. They want Benjamin Netanyahu extradited to the International Criminal Court. These are things that the United States cannot agree to. No president could ever agree to. And so we sit here and we're in this Nash equilibrium. To keep dropping more bombs on them and keep Team America Hegseth sitting there saying all kinds of, I mean, this right is so cartoonish. It's really cartoonish. And all they have to do is just wait. Okay. The tweets aren't going to work. The Treasury, Bessonnet trying to sell oil futures short, the SPR releases, all of this stuff runs out at some point. It has a limited shelf life to keep the oil price down. And once this gets priced in, the mentality changes on traders. All those shorts are going to be closed out, and you're going to start seeing oil going up, marching up, 125, 150, $200 a barrel. You already see a lot of these third world, developing world countries are already suffering. What's the political pressure from the rest of the world going to be on the United States? Okay. I mean, this is really not good. And so I don't know how this ends up, but again, we're playing it on the long side with a trigger finger because anything could change at any time. And, maybe they will have some land invasion, or maybe they're going to use these Marines to interdict these tankers that are coming out. There is some tanker traffic, mostly Chinese or Iranian tankers. Few are leaving, I'll show that. But in some countries, some tanker owners have paid the toll. I think it was like $2 million on one of the cargoes, and the Iranians allowed it. Of course, it was in Chinese yuan also. So that's kind of the framework they're looking at. And so, unless you're going to devote the United States to a 10-year effort and go on a World War II footing and raise a 2, 3, 4 million man army and literally invade and occupy Iran and disassemble the IRGC, like denazification in Germany after World War II, then I don't see how you're going to get out of this. Okay. I don't see, wait, and now I think the president and the administration are panicking because I think they're starting to understand that no matter how many bombs we drop, no matter how many missiles we fire at Iran, this brings into notwithstanding the fact that Iran continues to launch effectively missiles and drones at Israel. Okay. At some point, that place is going to buckle. And then, you have madmen at the helm there. Okay, another bunch of people that have a martyrdom complex, and they have nuclear weapons. This is the fear that, well, we don't have any other choice. We have to use a tactical nuclear weapon, which there's no such thing as a tactical nuclear weapon. A nuclear weapon, depending on how many megatons. I mean, what are you going to do? Drop it on central Tehran and kill 5 million people? You think that you're just going to drop nuclear weapons on every city in Iran? I mean, Israel, the United States would be a pariah state for the rest of the world. I can't even imagine fallout from something like that, figuratively and literally. So, yeah, this was really ill-conceived. This was the biggest own goal in the history of the world politics. I mean, this was ridiculous. Okay. And please don't come at me in comments and say they were 2 weeks away from making a nuclear weapon. They've been saying that for 47 years. Okay. The media and the warmongers like Lindsey Graham. Okay. JCPOA was in effect. It had been negotiated. It was working, and Trump, voted by the Israelis, got rid of it in 2018. Now he's basically sent Witkoff and Kushner again. I asked the question, why are these two bums even involved? They're not even in the state. I mean, really, can't you see how stupid this is? To the point where I think the Iranians have said they don't even want to talk to Steve Witkoff anymore. Okay. Please send professional diplomats from the State Department that know Farsi, that know the history of Iran, that understand, okay, nuclear technology, because it now has come out from a British diplomat that he was on the talks listening. He was there present, and he said that Witkoff and Kushner didn't even understand what the Iranians were talking about vis-a-vis their nuclear program. They were out to lunch, just like you or I would be. Okay. I don't know if this was deliberate or they're just, you don't have the right people involved. So this whole thing is a clown show. And anyways, this is happening around the world. This is real life for many people around the world in these developing countries that live hand to mouth. So here's tankertrackers.com, crude oil exports during the first 23 days of March 2026. First, first 23 days of 2026. This is just a visual to remind you Iran's exports are actually up. So are Oman's, because Oman again has a pipeline that circumvents out from the Persian Gulf out to the Gulf of Oman. Okay, I can't pronounce what it's called, Al Farija or something like this. Notice that Russia's production is up. Russia is a benefactor of this. But look at these other places: Kuwait, Iraq, North, Iraq South, Saudi Arabia. They're all down massively. Okay, this is the problem. And again, these things have been damaged. We don't know the full extent. Now, I will say that industry is pretty good about repairing things, but some of these things may have long lead time items that you can't just, if you if you damage a pressure vessel, you have to get a new one. You can't just weld a patch on it. You're dealing with some of these things like a hydrocracker. It's running at something like, I don't know if I remember correctly, thousands of PSI. 1,000, 2,000 PSI. You can't just weld something patch on there if it has a big hole in it. So, you know, this needs to be taken into consideration that even if this ended today, Trump said, okay, that's it, you know, we're going to agree to everything, and Iranians say, okay, we're going to open everything up. How long would it take to get everything back up and running again? Notwithstanding the fact that you're going to have probably a permanent premium, geopolitical premium now placed on oil, maybe $10 a barrel. So yeah, that's good. So here's the daily vessel transit, Strait of Hormuz. You see before things started, or the day of, I think, 86 vessels transited. I think it was yesterday, two vessels, okay, transited. So there are some vessels even, but you're like 90% plus down from where we were prior to this conflict starting. So that's it. Again, remember, not that much is coming in either. Okay, so what does that mean for everybody there? Here's crude on water. This is, crude that's traveling in tankers already or being stored in tankers. We did have a bit of a glut, they were saying. So, and a lot of these tankers are trapped still in the Persian Gulf. So there's only a limit. It's not like you can just draw all this down to zero. Okay. But you see the free fall you're in as these tankers hit port and offload, then they're not able to steam back and get reloaded. And so we saw, you know, we're seeing, uh, this is what you saw during COVID, the same thing. When we shut the world down, crude got stored on tankers, and then after everything opened up again, it got sucked down. But this is a supply, so this will be interesting to watch. You can go to this BCA research. They have a page. I'll put it in the show notes, a link. They have a page that has all of this great information. It's probably delayed by a day or so, but you can follow all of this, okay? And you can see all this data, tankers. I mean, everything you want to see, you can see. I mean, ships, fertilizer prices, the whole thing kind of in one page. It's a lot of information, but they've really done a good service by opening this up for free for people to see. So this is where I got this chart. I'll put a link in the show notes. So as of yesterday, I was waiting for this. So here's the Strait of Hormuz, right? This is, all of the Gulf states. Emirates, Kuwait's up here, Bahrain, okay, all these places, Qatar, Strait of Hormuz. Okay, we get it. But here's Yemen, okay, and there's that pipeline that goes to Yanbu, which is in the Red Sea over here, that the Saudis are shipping oil to. Well, new shooter at the table. The Houthis have re-entered the game. Okay, they're back at the crap table. That's what I mean. New shooter coming out, literally, because this is a Iranian proxy that we never really got under control when they had the Red Sea closed before, and now they've re-entered the game. And so you have this Bab al-Mandab Strait, which means Gate of Tears, I believe, in Arabic, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, and, this is similar to the Strait of Hormuz. And so now this is effectively going to be challenging if the Houthis ramp up. And this is another potential way to block in more oil. Yes, you could go through the Suez, but, you know, I guess we'd have to wait and see how much this would affect tanker traffic and, you know, rejiggering all of these transits. I mean, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look into it. Can the Suez how many ships can the Suez accommodate per day? Suez Canal. I mean, this is just getting worse now. If you wanted my opinion of where they might actually consider landing some troops, it might be here. But talking about the U.S., but who knows? I really hope they don't do that. But again, this is just getting worse now. They're back involved. They kind of were sitting it out for a while, but they made an announcement I saw on X that they're back in the game now. They were pretty effective the last time they were in the game as far as closing traffic to the Red Sea to the point where a lot of the traffic that was going had to go down around the Horn of Africa, which, really, if you recall, really affected tanker rates and clean tanker rates for refined products and a lot of other shipping because nobody wanted to go through here. The Yemenis, the Houthis actually sunk two fertilizer carrier ships uh, during that time frame. People forget about these things. So this is another thing to take into consideration. Again, uh, I wouldn't call this an escalation. This is, these people have, I guess you could try to take over, this plot of land and hold it to keep it open. I don't know. I don't know what these generals and these advisors are telling the president. But, again, this is just getting worse, not better. So I wanted to point this out. This is Anas Al-Haji. He's on a lot of the X spaces. I don't know. He's right some of the time. He's wrong some of the time. But I thought this was interesting pointing this out. That's why I put we are living in clown world. It says Trump has temporarily waived sanctions on Russian oil tankers at sea to help bring down global oil prices. Meanwhile, Zelensky launched major drone strikes on key Russian oil export ports in the Baltic Sea, halting oil shipments. At the same time, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has authorized the UK military to board and detain Russian oil tankers, including those covered by Trump's waiver. Yeah, this is clown world. And people want to tell me that there's some master plan of the elites to take over the world. It's really not that hard to figure out, guys. People who have wealth and power try to get more wealth and power. There's no master plan. These people are clowns. Well, there's a cabal behind them. Well, their plan isn't really, and then people want to ascribe that's their master plan to collapse the world economy. Really? Because after three missed meals, all of these elites will be killed because you're going to have riots in the streets in these countries. Go back and look what happened at the Arab Spring. Go look what happened in Sri Lanka recently. Okay, these places. Okay, the elites, even in Iran, don't want to die. Okay, they want to, for the most part. Okay, a lot of people just want to get rich and be in positions of power because their life is easy, okay? And they want to get richer because people are greedy. This is human nature. And so this is the clown world we live in. They they lower they waived the sanctions on Russian oil and Iranian oil. The U.S. has, remember, to get as many barrels into the market as possible. Try to, this is their strategy. Okay. And then Zelensky is blasting oil export facilities in Russia. I mean, this is the plan. This is not a good plan. And Keir Starmer, who's the weakest prime minister that the British have ever had, but he's completely appropriate for this accelerating decline, feckless, weak, non-manly, anything you can subscribe to, any synonym of weak and ineffective that you want to subscribe, that's him, is now going to board Russian tankers. I mean, it's madness, folks. It's madness. So as I've been talking about, chemicals and plastics are soaring. You can go right. I'll put a lot of these charts on the Facebook. Please check out the Facebook page. People have written me that are free subscribers to the Substack, and they've said, like, what do I get? Okay, if I subscribe. Okay, if you become a paid subscriber to the Substack, I write a newsletter every month for paid subscribers. Okay, where we deep dive these ideas and I give you actionable ideas that you can put your money into based on your own research. This is telling you what I'm doing to take advantage of the things that we're talking about in these videos. Okay, that's what you get. You get one issue a month. You have access to the back issues that are on the Substack. Okay, that's what paid subscribers get. You can sign up for a year, it's $199. You can take it monthly, it's $30 a month. Why is it so much higher? Because I don't want looky-loos. I'm trying to dissuade people from doing that. In addition, you also get access to the subscriber Discord. There's a lot of good information. We talk about stuff in real time there. There's a lot of subscribers on there that have been there for many years. People that have, I don't want to say inside information, but have that more ideas, that deep dive stuff that come with other ideas that I don't cover. That's what you get. Okay. So if you're interested in that, the links are in the show notes. Again, this is what we were talking. I've been talking about this in the Discord. I've been playing this. Okay. There's plenty of companies that are benefiting from this. I showed you last week that the price increases are already being sent out to customers of these chemical companies. Okay. And a lot of these things in Germany and Asia, uh, they're having to shut down because they don't have the feedstocks necessary. What's a feedstock? It's what you need to make the polychloride or the polyvinyl or whatever chemicals you're making, whether that's naphtha, natural gas liquids, ethane, whatever. I mean, there's a whole slew of chemicals and products that are made from petroleum feedstocks. So if they don't get the feedstocks, they shut down. But the demand is still there for some portion of time, so prices go up. So Asia produces 60% of global plastics. I just said that they're shutting down their production because they can't get the feedstocks they need. 80% of Hormuz-linked oil and gas flows were directed to Asia. Okay, so this is showing you the feedstock source, coal, oil, you know, petroleum, different things, gas. I mean, this is hard to see, but it's just showing you like all the different, polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC. I mean, I don't even know all of these. Okay. And this is showing you uh, process, resin production, showing you how much, you know, manufacturing, what the products it goes into. I mean, this is pretty involved. And if you shut down here, if you shut down the supply of the feedstocks, all the rest of this dies on the vine. It's like cutting off water to a plant. So this is why prices are soaring. So again, this is another vignette. This is going to affect things. So half of the Dutch fishing fleet is idle. Half of Dutch fleet idle as European fishing hit by high diesel prices. Dirk van Tunen, a spokesman for the Dutch Fishers Union, said weekly fuel bills that ran 12 to 13,000 euros before the war started on February 28th are now heading towards 30,000 euros, roughly equal to the total value of a of fish a vessel might bring in at this time of the year, leaving no money to pay a crew. Quote, now the fuel bill is equal to the revenue, so it simply does not work, unquote. There you go. This is just the things that are going to start happening as so with fuel where it's at currently, and it's likely going higher, the value you would get for the fish brought in equals the total fuel bill. You can't go out and fish unless prices for fish soar, okay, above the fuel cost. It's called supply and demand, or unless the government subsidize. Okay, so what happens to the supply of fish in the Netherlands and in Europe? Well, we don't know yet, but I suspect it's going to start going down and prices are going to start going up. This is not going to make people happy. Again, I think governments will try to subsidize or give refunds or what have you because they've got to try to keep things moving. But that doesn't, we need supply destruction. We need our demand destruction. We need oil prices to go high enough to destroy enough demand to bring bring things into equilibrium. And I think you're going to find out now how inculcated petroleum is in your life. It's hard to get that level of demand destruction. Going to take very, very high oil prices, probably new record highs. Now, I hope we don't get to that point because the amount of suffering that's going to happen for that amount of demand destruction is going to be unimaginable. And I'm not really a guy that gets into too much hyperbole or scaremongering, but this is starting to worry me. Okay? You're talking about now food production shutting down. This is not good. So Trump has taken it in the shorts in the polls. I mean, I've talked about this before, and a couple people have asked me that I know, well, what do I think about this? I really, you were already facing loss of the House just from a historical perspective. The party in power in the presidency usually does bad in the House elections. It's just how it is historically. There's been some anomalies where they've actually gained, but typically you lose seats in the House, uh, and that's what we were on deck for. Now, with this unforced error, with its own goal, with its unwanted war now starting to affect prices. Here's gas prices. People look at this. The average schlub doesn't get into the JCPOA and how many tankers go through the Strait of Hormuz or how much naphtha is needed in Asian chemical plants. They look at simple things, the price of basic foods that they have to buy and gasoline. And if gas prices are going up, when you said you were going to drill, baby, drill and get gas prices down, that aggravates them. That's how the average person thinks. They don't get into geopolitics. Okay. Well, Iran's 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon. I'm willing to pay $8 a get for gas and destroy our economy because somebody had to do something. This is not how people think. This is why his poll numbers are collapsing. This is why not only was he going to lose the House, he's in big danger of losing the Senate. If he loses the Senate, okay, which I suspect, and things get bad enough, he will be impeached, including in the Senate, in my view. This guy's got to stop talking like a crazy person and fire some of these crazy people in the administration like Team America Hegseth. You can't allow him to talk like that. He talks like a 13-year-old kid playing Call of Duty. Stop it. Stop this stuff. Get control of your administration, or people are going to remove you and you will go to prison. Another thing I want to talk about is it's starting to come out. It doesn't matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. You're going to have wars no matter who. This is just the United States is an empire, okay? That's we're not trying to build back better. We're not trying to make America great again. We're not caring about the working man. You have an oligarchy here, okay? BlackRock, for example, has $20 trillion of assets under management. Do you think they care what the everyman thinks? Are you that naive? Who do you think actually runs things? Do you think Jamie Dimon cares about the price of gasoline? For you, no, you're talking about big money, okay, and lots of power involved. Larry Fink 4 years ago, 4 years ago, was a big advocate for renewable energy. Now he's out. You see, these people will flip-flop on a dime. They have no principles. They have no caring. Their hearts are hardened. They don't care about you. And so they put these people in power. Trump, he is what he is. There is a constant, there's a desire among the populace. They want a better life. They're disappointed and disillusioned. And so he tapped into that. And he was good at that because he's a showman by nature. Okay. But you can't run the U.S. government. You can't fix things. I've said this before and people get mad. Just to cut to the chase. We're in the late stage Soviet Union. We're in the Brezhnev era. Okay. We're in terminal decline. It doesn't matter who you elect. They're not going because the things are not fixable at this point. Okay. And this isn't blackpilling. This is reality. Okay. And so I've said all along that the U.S. would come to some kind of foreign adventure that finally blew up in our face so bad that totally, totally caused us to go, you know, to be the final nail in the coffin. And I suspect this might be it. And so I would not want to be the president. I would not want to be in his administration. These people are front running trades. Okay. They're using inside information. Saw it the other before it's come out now that right before the attack, people were making hundreds of millions of dollars bets on on oil futures and shorting the market. Okay. Where did they get that information? I'm not going to say when the administration owns a company that does trading on Wall Street. I don't know. He's the guy that lived next door to Epstein and said he never knew the guy. I mean, this is not hard to figure out. You just had, for example, in Israel, a major, I think, that was somebody that was purview in the Israeli Defense Forces to these attacks was trading on poly market. You don't think that people don't do this? Show me the incentive and I'll tell you the outcome. People that are doing this need to be prosecuted. It's treason. Okay. But is anything going to happen? No. Trump's going to write a bunch of pardons before he gets impeached, and everybody's going to walk away with their bag. It's how this works. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're not going to vote your way out of this. You can put, whoever you want in there. You're going to get wars, inflation, and decline. That's what you're going to get because nobody's going to fix this system. It's unfixable. You can't do it in a 2 and 4 year election cycle. So, and that's it. So here's urea prices. I wanted to show this going back to the last Russian crisis when the Russians invaded. We're still well below those levels, but we're advancing quickly, which will continue as long as the Strait stays closed. We've talked about what this means for the planting season, which is we're now entering in the northern hemisphere. You've got to apply these fertilizers when you put the seeds in the ground and at other application points. And so this is a problem. A lot of farmers aren't going to be in the same boat as those Dutch fishermen. The amount I have to pay for these fertilizers and seed and diesel, I can't make any money based on current crop prices. So crop prices are going to have to go up sufficiently, which they will, because there'll be shortages because people are not, or they're going to shift to like soybeans, which create their own nitrogen. Okay. Of course, you're going to get all of these dislocations, okay, in markets because of this. So ethanol prices, I put here, may cause sugar prices to rise. Why? Well, you're going into, I think April 1st starts the crush season for sugarcane in Brazil. And what Brazilian farmers and people that sugar mills look at is, okay, well, if the price of oil is low, I'll make sugar out of this sugarcane. If the price of oil is high, prices for ethanol are high because you mix it in with gasoline. As a matter of fact, I think the Brazilian government is maxing out the level of ethanol in the mix of gasoline. Then they're going to crush and make ethanol out of the sugarcane. So if they If the sugarcane crop is diverted away from sugar to make more ethanol to compensate for the lack of gasoline because of the lack of oil, okay, then sugar prices are apt to go up. You see, this is how you get into second and third order thinking and create opportunities for yourself. So, of course, sugar prices are breaking higher because people are not stupid. People that will allocate capital, this is how they think, intermarket relationships and second and third order thinking. So I was on Triangle Investor the other day, and he asked me like, why is the gold price down? We're having these conflicts. Well, I mean, we're getting reports now that people are selling their gold, like Turkey, and I heard Russia's selling some gold. So, typically gold doesn't necessarily go up in an inflationary environment because what happens is, as we've seen, again, intermarket relationships. If you look at what's happening with interest rates, they're soaring. Okay. They're creating strength in the dollar. I believe the dollar is actually slightly up. This is not positive for gold. You need real negative rates for gold to really go higher. And so, notwithstanding the fact that if countries are turning from net, central banks are turning from net buyers and starting to sell gold, then this is what happens. Notwithstanding the fact that it was overbought and well above its moving averages and had been up for the last 2 years, I'm sure people are taking profits also. So, uh, notwithstanding the fact that um, gold is very liquid, it trades 24 hours, and if you need to get your book right and get your portfolio straight or a margin called, it's very easy to liquidate gold and these other instruments around gold and use the money to shore up the rest of your portfolio. So that's kind of what I think is happening. I still think we're in a long-term gold bull market. Again, I pointed out on Triangle Investor that the interview I did that, we just crossed $39 trillion in debt on our way to, the journey to insolvency continues. And the journey to yield curve control, eventual yield curve control and money printing continues. And so, yes, I'm bullish long term on gold. That means multi-year. I don't know what gold will do in a week, month, or 3 months, or a year even. I know that over a long period of time, that the fundamental drivers of gold are in place and are not going to change. Okay, they are set in stone. There's no government in the West that's going to fix their debt problems, okay, which are so bad now because now all of the stupid promises they made for political reasons to their elderly populations, they cannot pay for them. And so do you think they're going to cut the benefits? Well, there'll be slight cuts here and there. They'll tinker around, but in the end, they're going to have to pay. It's like Greenspan told Ron Paul during congressional testimony, which you can watch on YouTube, where Ron Paul asked him, "What about Social Security? We can't pay for these things in Medicare because the math doesn't work. If this was an insurance company or some other uh, private company with a fiduciary responsibility, like with annuities or something like that, they would be in jail because the assets don't match the liabilities. And you've made promises based on this lie." And he said, "Well, we have this thing called a printing press. I guarantee you that the benefits will be paid, but I do not guarantee the value of the benefits." I mean, that's right from Alan Greenspan, the maestro. And so, yes, gold is volatile. It fluctuates. We're in the end stages of the Atlantis hegemon, prepare for a lot of money printing and inflation. Gold's going to benefit. That's all I can tell you. So this is another reason why people are upset. For the first time, I think that they've tracked this, that Gallup began tracking it. More U.S. workers are struggling in life than thriving. So this is another reason why you're going to have, again, political instability. I mean, so what are we're in a political environment where nothing's going to be fixed, and people are going to become more and more upset, more and more disillusioned, falling further and further behind. Okay. And they're going to say, why is this happening? Somebody do something. Okay, Trump didn't do it. I'll vote for Gavin Newsom. Please, Gavin, fix this. And they don't understand that it's not fixable. The current system is incapable, like the late Soviet Union. Yes, they had a guy like Gorbachev come along. He tried perestroika. It was so rotten, the whole thing had to be collapsed and rebuilt from the ground up. Okay. Soviet system collapsed. There was a lot of pain. And then, what emerged is what happened. And that's kind of, I think, of course, nothing's exactly the same. That's kind of the way the system is here. A bunch of old people in politics, grifting, been there for decades, do nothing, don't care, steal, insider trade, things that you would never be allowed to do. Okay. If you knew a guy at a company and he told you something and you traded on that information, you can go to prison. These people in Congress pass legislation that benefits certain companies directly and take positions in those companies by buying their stock before the legislation's passed and profit, and nothing happens to them. And you're telling me that these people care about you and that they're going to fix things? They can't even pass, even though it's about 70% across the board, people are in favor of having elections where you have to prove that you're a U.S. citizen, which is not hard to do, okay? And they can't pass it. They won't pass it. They can't pass. I mean, it's been brought to the floor legislation to stop this insider trading. They're not going to pass it. Why would they? What are you going to do if they don't? You're not going to do anything because it's red. They got you trapped in this red team, blue team matrix. Well, my side might be bad, but the other side's even worse. I mean, come on, guys, wake up. And they're laughing all the way to the bank. The oligarchs and the military industrial complex and all these assorted characters and knaves and fools that you even listen to. And this is it. This is going to get worse, not better. And people are going to be scratching their head. Gee, I gotta get up and vote. We gotta vote for. So I gotta go to this rally. Okay, do you? So here it is. One of the reasons that Trump got elected, and he's talked a good game. Policies resonated with a lot of people because of they were for the common man. They were going to be beneficial. And a lot of young people who are struggling bought into it. He got a lot of support from younger people. Okay. Uh, Not just a lot of support from African American males, a lot of support from Hispanics. Okay. I mean, down here, even in South Texas, there's a revival of the Republican Party. We had congressmen get elected down here. Okay. Because of, the rhetoric that was put out. And now that's all been dissipated, been pissed away. And I guess historians will have to do the interviews and write the books after the fact of how you would squander one of the biggest political comebacks, the political momentum that was there to basically serve your oligarch masters that gave you money, whether they were pro-Israeli donors like the Adelsons, whether they were, you know, the military industrial complex, the warmongers like Lindsey Graham, like the people that you brought into your administration, all grifters, thieves, yeah, and knaves like Lutnick and Witkoff and your son-in-law Kushner. I mean, people, if you really look at that Kushner family, that's a real piece of work. Look into what the dad did, you know. I mean, these people are, and so that's how you decided to serve. Some MAGA people were brought in early. They're already out. They're out. Okay. And that's who you have in there. A bunch of grifters, people stealing. I mean, who thought the president telling the president to have a Trump and Melania coin was a good idea? Okay. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to the clown show uh, hearings that they're going to have after the midterms, and these goofy Democrats get in there. I mean, it's going to be quite amusing to watch. And if things get bad enough, like I said, and what's going to happen here is it's going to be interesting in my view. I mean, look at this approval between 18 and 29-year-olds, okay? In February 2025, he was -1. In December 25, he was -23 because housing, okay, you didn't fix that. Get energy prices down, get the cost of living down. You're not doing what these people thought you said you were gonna do. You walked away from Doge after 3 months. Okay. Remember that? We talked about that. There was an opportunity there. Okay. And he got rid of Elon, he got rid of all those people, or the people around him got rid of him. I don't even think he knows what's really going on half the time. He's locked into this 1950s version of Leave It to Beaver America that doesn't exist. And he has a bunch of sycophants around him. He has a lot of faults, like all of us do. Don't think pointing the finger at Trump and like you don't have any faults yourself. Okay. He is narcissistic. He has a huge ego. He is kind of a showman and a grifter himself. And this is what he surrounded himself with. Okay. And they're all yes men. Yes, Mr. Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump. Whatever you say, you're the greatest, Mr. Trump. These are psychophants. And there's a certain amount of that in the administration. I remember when I was coming up through the ranks, and I made it very high into management, probably further than I could get nowadays. Let's put it that way, just based on the mentorship I had. But I remember one of my mentors saying that because I would speak up in meetings, and you have a lot of yes men, and then my mentor would be like, "Well, what do you think, John?" It kind of was like that, this like that scene in Heartbreak Ridge where they're getting the drill go. They thought they were going to war at first, and the colonel comes out and he's talking to the major who's all hyped up to go to war. Yes, sir, we're ready to go fight and die for our country. And then he looks over at Gunny Highway, Clint Eastwood, and he says, "What do you think, Gunny?" He says, plain spoken to the colonel in front of everybody, "I think this is a huge cluster, you know what?" Cluster bungle, but he used another word. Okay. And he's Colonel kind of chuckling. He says, "Well, what's the problem?" So he tells him, he goes, "Interesting. You don't have that anymore. The way you get advanced in the military and corporate America nowadays, or in the way the Brezhnev era of decline, is to be a yes man, to go along to get along. Okay, your dissension and coming up with pointing out risks and being able to discuss them and get them out there is not valued. Okay, consensus is valued. Go along, get along. How do I get higher in the Pentagon? Well, sir, this is the stupidest idea I ever heard. We're not going to do this. This is dumb. It's going to ruin your presidency. That's not how you get advanced. Well, sir, it'll be difficult, but our men are ready and we'll get it done. U.S. That's how you do it. How you get involved in corporate America. Okay. Hey, I'm not the, you sitting there and you're in a conference and you're listening to this and say, this guy's an idiot. I'm just going to sit here. When he falls, that'll open up a spot and maybe I'll move up. That's how it is. Okay. And it's not going to change. And so, yes, these people are actually going to go out and vote. These people are either going to stay home or they're going to vote Democrat. Okay, and you're already seeing it in these off elections, and people are excusing, well, these are off elections and Trump's not on the ballot, so people aren't turning out. As more and more things flip, I mean, you've got areas that went for the president in the election recently by double digits that have flipped to blue now. I mean, this is crazy. And people are just, it's going to be a huge wake up call for people. It's going to be a wipeout. And, it probably will mean, I mean, this is, again, I said, this is the biggest own goal in the history. You had such an opportunity to be a historic figure and to make real change. But I've come to the conclusion a long time ago that you can't change it. I don't care who you are. No singular person or one administration, which really only has about 2 years to do anything before the congressional elections come up off your election. You can't do anything in 2 years. The legal system with these judges and being able to this is why all these presidents go on these foreign adventures, because no one stops them from doing. At least I can be consequential doing something there. Because you can't get anything done here. Somebody files a lawsuit, they find some hokey judge in Hawaii or Minnesota, puts an injunction on it. Then the Justice Department's in there fighting with, goes to the Supreme Court 2 years later. Who cares? Okay, then you're out of office. So this is how it is. So, anyways, that's it. That's what's going to happen. Again, the vice is closing on the president and his administration. He better come up with a solution quick. Uh, what's on offer from the Iranians is not possible to be accepted by any president. And so at this point in time, I see no way out of this except for higher prices, eventually just breaking the system. And then unfortunately, you're going to get chaos. Instead of having a controlled demolition, you could have chaos. You could have, $8 again. I'm not the one that coined this phrase. 3 days without food, 9 missed meals, and people are ready to have a revolution. We've seen that throughout history. So on that, I'll leave you with that. Again, Actionable Intelligence Alert newsletter on the Substack. Links are in the show notes. If you want to avail yourself of that, please choose to do that. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.